Christmas is a really expensive time of the year. That's why I thought I would bring you the 15 items that I've been selling the most over the last couple of years. I know these sell well because these have been on my stalls for the last couple of years, and this is how I'm paying to upgrade this workshop and also making sure that I have a debt-free Christmas every year. So sit back and relax whilst you make that plan on how you're going to have a debt-free Christmas next year by using the tools that are around you. The first thing I'm going to make is a jigsaw piece. This piece is going to have some writing on, thanking the teacher for what they've done. I've got a nice big piece of tulip wood. I'm going to start breaking this down into thinner pieces of stock. Once the stock's broken down, I'm going to use a template that I've made on my laser. These are quick and easy to make. If you've not got a laser, you can buy these online out of acrylic for a couple of pounds. Nice and easy. So once we're flat and smooth, it's time to mark out how big our shapes are. There's nothing worse than cutting your stock down only to figure out that you've not got enough left to make the piece that you want to make. And with everyone's favourite double-sided sticky tape, you apply your template on top and then route around the edge using a pattern bit. And once you've been round all four sides, you have one complete jigsaw piece. Now just to put some lettering on. Now on this project, I know I'm going to be using a laser at times. I do that because I've got one. But before I had a laser, I used to use pens. I used to draw on the designs that I like, or the wording, and then I would put a clear coat of varnish over the top. These items used to sell nearly as well as the lasered versions, and I know this because this is how I pay for my laser. So I've in fact made two sets of these. The first, as you've seen, was completely with the router and doing things handheld. The second I've cut and engraved on the laser. I don't have a preference for either, both have their merits. I always love something being handmade. But the great thing with the laser is, it's like having an employee. It can be doing one job whilst you do another. Looking now at the finished item on the stall, and I think these look great. I sold 6 of these on the day at £5 each. So project number 2 is some art display boards. These are fantastic for putting up those paintings and drawings that your kids bring home from nursery and school. Now the original ones of these that I did was pine from a pallet with some vinyl lettering over the top. They looked okay, but they weren't great, so I'm going to try pimp these up now with some hardwood and laser engravings. The saying is quite easy. It can change from an I or a we, and if you want to charge a little bit more, you can make this personalised by putting a child's name in there and charging that little bit more for your time. It's a key thing about selling things as a beginner is hitting the right audience for the products that you're going to bring with you. Once you've set your table saw up, run your piece of wood through, and it's that simple to turn 2 boards into 3. Well, that and a little bit of glue. So once we've got a nice amount of coverage, it's onto the universal glue spreader. Yes, that's right, it's a right index finger. Always where you left it last, always hand it and on tap to help spread that glue out. A couple of clamps and a few hours later, and this thing is at the perfect size. There's nothing difficult with this project, it's just about running through a couple of quick simple steps. Now the advantage I had with this cherry was that it came pre-finished. It was planed on all four sides. The only reason I'm sanding this piece, quite frankly, is because I glued it back together. Once I'm happy with the finish, I put a slight round over on. I love just knocking down all the edges on a workpiece. I think it makes it just look that next level. A tiny bit of hand sanding later, and we're on to the lasering. Like I said, I've got a laser, so this is what I like to use, but you can order vinyl sayings for only a few pounds each. Again, it'll keep your cost down to under £5 a board. Considering that you're going to be able to charge 15, or certainly I can in my area, that's a nice profit for what is an hour's work to make 3 boards. These little T-slot hooks are fantastic. I buy these by the hundreds, and when you do that, they work out at pence. It really doesn't add any sort of cost to your project, but finishes the piece off because everyone wants a piece that they can take home and hang straight away. A small amount of leftover webbing is used to attach the pictures. Nothing difficult here, just 3 staples on each side, keeps it nice and easy. Now I think this project's come out rather great. The cherry has come up fantastic with a little bit of wipe on poly, and the timing for 3 boards is less than an hour. On the day at the market stall, because it was outside, I was able to get these hung up, and I added some artwork for my little girl to really hammer home the point of what these boards were about. On the day I sold 3, that's £45 worth of revenue, and I've spent less than £10 making all 3. That's a nice bit of profit for a beginner level project. So project 3 is these candle holders. Nice and simple, but sell really, really well. And the great thing is, if you want to take these to an intermediate level, you can put some branding or wording on the front, something like love or live, laugh, live, laugh, live, love, laugh, live. Anything that you see in the homeware stores around your area, you can easily recreate on this project. These are a great little maker because they don't take much time. And once you make a template, then you're off and away. You can make this repeatable, and it's quick and it's easy. It sells well, and the price point is perfect. A smaller one will come in at £5 on my stall, ranging up to £10. If somebody really wanted it engraving with some personalised details, then I'd be looking at £15 for that extra 10 minutes work. What a great little earner these are. These things are full of potential, and I urge you not to overlook simple little projects like these. So this project kicks off with the basics that we always have. We've got to mark out how big we want something. As always, I like to use an existing piece or a template. It keeps things simple, it gives consistency, and it allows you to save time. Once we've cut down this tulip wood, it's into the planer. Now if you've not got a wood muncher like this is one of the pieces that you need to be saving up for first, because this takes every project to the next level and saves so much time. So out comes the existing stock to make some marks, and then we're going to cut this down with a chop saw. I'm going to make 2 at this thickness. I'm then going to take the 3rd piece, run it back through the table saw and make it slim. The popular saying says that variety is the spice of life, but forget that. Variety is the key to sales in a small marketplace. There's no point having 10 of the exact same thing, because you can guarantee someone will like the concept but not maybe that exact design. Keeping lots of different pieces will help you increase your sales, grow your tools, and also get repeat customers as they understand that you can make different things for different occasions. Now I must have used this template about 10 times now. The amount of time that this saves me in production is unbelievable. Yes, I make mine on lasers, but you could make this by measuring once and making it out of a piece of scrap MDF or plywood, and it would do just the same job. This allows, like I'm doing here, just to get the markings done, and then I can remove the template and freehand this. Now this is where a drill press would have come in real handy. If you're eagle-eyed enough, you can see that the drill bit slips and I scuffed the piece. This is why I've not ended up with exact pieces of 3. I've ended up later on with 2s and 1s because I had to chop out the mistakes to salvage the project. But never give up, always keep adapting. You'll be amazed at how that helps with your variety. And this is how it looked on the stall. I was absolutely made up. Another top sales tip is to get some electric candles, that way you're not setting off any fire alarms if you're inside. Now I thought I would put a little segment in about where to buy wood, because there are some savings to be made for the beginners like ourselves who want to turn around small products for a little bit of profit to grow our workshops. We've all been there, haven't we? The apprehension before going into a proper wood store. I went into one just a couple of months ago and it was clear that the lad behind the counter was enjoying the fact that I didn't have a clue what he were on about. So my top tip for yourselves is to find a furniture maker that's local to you. I've got a company down the road that makes drawer boxes. That's all they do, and they make it out of hardwood. But some of the wood that they order isn't quite fit for their purpose. They put it outside in a scrap container and sell it to hobbyists like me and most likely you. This is great because it's downgraded in price terrifically. You probably can't see how big this piece is, but this is American oak and that has cost me £6. This piece comes in at 1m20 long, 20 centimeters wide and 20mm deep. The thing that you might not be able to see is that it's got a horrific amount of bow in it. No good for a professional company, but someone like myself who will just chop this into smaller pieces, it'll lose that bow in no time. £6 for a piece like this is an absolute bargain, and I can turn this £6 board into around £100, no dramas. Other place I like to shop for hardwood is Facebook Marketplace. Now hear me out here. I never go to any of the sellers, but what I do is I look for people that are getting rid of furniture cheap. Dining tables are my favourites. I've got 2 at the moment. I've got an oak one that I've just broke down and I'll be using the legs in the next project. And I've also got one out of mango, which is really nice, really rare, and both came in at a grand total of £0. So we're into the home straight now with the final project, and this is made out of the previously mentioned oak table legs. Cost £0, profit depends on what you want to charge. So the first part of project 4 is going to be an oak chopping board. This is going to be a simple rectangle, nice square edges, as chunky as I can make it, quick and easy, a high profit. The second one is going to be a charcuterie board that's going to have a design similar to that of a meat cleaver. Again, adding variety to the products that I have brings in more customers. It gives me more opportunity to engage as well with the people that are coming up to my stall. You never know when you might get that request for a custom order. So the first part is to finish breaking down this table leg, because I've never seen a right angle chopping board. Once I've got the 2 parts separated, I come back and just buzz each end through. This makes sure that I've got a nice straight and clean reference edge for gluing up. Now, unless you really enjoy buying and changing planer blades, I really recommend just checking any reclaimed timber for metal. I've managed to trash 2 sets of blades in the last 3 years, and it is an absolute pain when you do it. Once we're all happy, it's through the wood muncher and just look at how well some of this reclaimed oak comes up. There are, however, a couple of dowel marks in this from where I've taken it apart, so I chopped those out because there's nothing lets a product down like a cheap piece of pine dowel. once we've added all the white stuff, it's time to put it together. A couple of clamps will hold this nice and firm. This is why it's so important to make sure you get those straight edges first. A couple of seconds in prep will save you hours later on in sanding and planing. A quick buzz over at 120 ensures that everything's nice and smooth. Now another top tip here, if you have an awkward sized board and you need to find the centre, if you turn your tape measure to an angle, find a number that you can easily divide by 2 and then make your mark at that point. No point doing hard maths if you don't have to. Now for the charcuterie board, I have used a template. These are readily available online, or you can make your own on a laser or with MDF like I've mentioned earlier on. The difference it makes having some funny shaped boards on your stall is unbelievable. The amount of conversations that get started because of a random piece, but you go on and convert a sale on either that or another piece is unbelievable, and I really can't downplay having enough variety and even some quirky ones that you may never sell, but you might just get some interest on your stall for. All the pieces get a round over on, and then it's time for some food safe oil. Now there is one thing I've learnt with charcuterie boards and making sales at stalls, is that the little details matter, so putting a little hook with some of this leather wire through really makes a difference. This costs pennies but doesn't half elevate things. Back to the chopping board, and I've got yet another jig. This is simply a right angled piece of wood with 3 holes in it at different sizes so I can determine where I want the feet. These rubber feet, like all the other things that I buy, I purchase online in the hundreds and they cost pennies each, but just adding a set of feet to a chopping board and lifting it off the work surface doesn't half change the look and the feel for the customer, and they think that they're getting something slightly more premium. And it doesn't take much to see how well oak comes up with a little bit of finish on. These looked absolutely fantastic. They were a statement piece on the day, and I got loads of inquiries and a couple of sales from these chopping boards alone. I love rustic projects because it means you can use the leftovers. These 2 salvage deck boards will do just fine. Now they are a little bit rough for my liking, so I'll buzz them quickly through the wood muncher and get them a little bit smoother than they were. After taking a quick couple of measurements, it's time to mark out on the wood. What I like to do with these is get the first one cut and then use that as a referential marker. That way I ensure that everything is nice and accurate. We fast forward through the cuts there and everything is all laid out as it's needed. Now there's one thing I've got to let you know on this. I'm going to be using a laser on several of these projects to add some personalisation. But fear not, all these projects can and have been made by me without a laser. You've just got to be smarter about the way that you do things, like using stencils or other artwork that you can then cover over with varnish to make sure that you've got a great looking gift. The reason I know this is because these projects paid for my laser. Simples. So the basic shape's coming together nicely. It's quite simply a box with a couple of supports in the bottom that have just been driven in with a couple of angle screws. Placing the tub and the wine chiller is complete. Nothing difficult at all there. So with this all built, let's have a quick look at the cost. You can find old deck boards that are still in a usable condition all over Facebook Marketplace. But worst case scenario, if you really had to, you can pick these up for about £7 to £8 at your local DIY store. This project took one big board and I even had a tiny little bit left over to make a bottle opener. Coming in at £30, this is a great profit maker for an hour's worth of work. Well worth the time invested for the money you will get on return. I'm going straight into my scraps cupboard. You don't need big pieces for this, and this is why this project is so fantastic, and it is a mobile phone stand. In total, you need to be able to get two pieces, one at 6" and one at 9". It's really not much more complicated than that, and if you can do this from your scraps, the bonus is you're into pure profit. The great thing I love about projects like this is this piece of scrap will make two phone holders. That doubles my profit. First of all, we're going to mark out those 6 and 9" markers before going over to the miter saw. You can use any sort of saw you want, just depends what you've got. You could even do this with a basic handsaw. We then look at how we're going to get them to fit together, and we need some sort of half lap. Again, I'm going to take a referential marking from my phone, because it'll be silly if it looked the wrong size, and then I'm going to mark out the width of each board up to the halfway mark so we can chop them out and make the whole thing slide together. Again, simple projects that you can make at home with basic tools. Now, my first attempt at using the bandsaw didn't quite give the result I wanted, so I came back and used my table saw, doing the outer markings first and then just chopping away at the inner pieces until I had the groove that I wanted. Quick test fit shows that it went together well after some minor adjustments. Now a quick sand, because I do want this one to be smooth, because I'm not going for rustic. This is maple hardwood and I want it to look like it's posh. Now I've left this in as a word of warning. This is what happens when you use a bandsaw and you leave loads of marks. So once I got rid of those, it was time to wipe on a little bit of finish and call this one done. Again, nothing difficult here. So now that we've seen the phone stand being made and there's several variations, let's break down the cost. This is pure profit for me because it's come from my scrap pile. Even if you had to buy some scrap wood to do it, you could do this just for a couple of pounds. These retail between £10 and £15 depending whether I personalise them or not. I sell these at stalls and I also sell them at Facebook Marketplace. These are a really popular option, especially around times like Father's Day and places like that where you can enhance what you get to charge. So again, I'm going to break down my stock because I don't want to use too big a piece of material. What I do want to do, however, is maximise how many of these I can make. I'm going to spend a little bit of time cleaning up the edge. Once the edges are nicely cleaned up, I'm going to chamfer them to add a little bit more detail and make this project look a little bit more refined. Now I like to mark out and cut in for all the hardware prior to doing any lasering or personalisation, and that goes for whether it's on the laser or using a stencil. Now a word of warning for anyone trying to sell anything: make sure somebody proofreads your work, especially when you've got dyslexia, because nobody wants a sign that says "Dad, King of the Girls." So let's have a look at the cost on this. Again, out of the scraps bin, it's not costing us anything, or at the most it's a couple of pounds in some offcuts from an offcut place. This is a great seller and a conversation starter on my stall. These retail again for £10 to £15, depending on whether I personalised it or just gone with a standard logo. Now you should be able to tell how long I've been making these caddies by how old this video is. I've been making these for 3 years and they have been a fantastic seller. What I really like about them, especially on a market stall, is that you can fill this full of beer and it acts as a great demo. Nothing draws people in like seeing alcohol. And once they're there, you get to sell them something and take the alcohol back. A great little marketing tool. And what I love about projects like this is that you can make templates and have spaces, and all this acts as is a vehicle to speed up how quickly you can make something. The quicker you can make it, the more scraps you can use, the more profit that you're going to make. Projects like this are absolutely awesome for that. Now, I've found that you need to go one or two ways with these. You need to make them super rustic, which is great because you don't have to put too much time into sanding or painting. You just need to make it look acceptable. Or you can go the other way and use hardwoods, but that's another story for another time. You've only got softwood scraps like I had for this project, then you can paint and varnish it and it will do just fine. You can of course go the other route and make this a really posh one using lovely hardwoods. The only caution I would add there is no matter how well you make something like this, there is a ceiling price that people are willing to pay. I couldn't imagine getting more than £30 in my area or on the stalls that I do, but maybe it's different in your area. And that for me is why I like using the softwood scraps, because I can paint them, I can varnish them, and I'll still get 20, maybe sometimes £25, depending whether I personalise it, which I think is a really good return for a product that again hasn't cost me any money. This is ideal for using in the home, or maybe if you've got a drink station where you might be making gin and tonics where you might need lemonade or something similar. I'm very lucky. The last time I was at my hardwood dealer, I found an offcut for £1 in their scrap bin. So let's have a look how I turned £1 into a sellable item. Now I think this project came out rather great. This cost £1 like I said before, and this will sell for £20 on my stall. That's a great markup for what is just an hour's work in between doing a couple of other projects at the same time. On my stall, I like to have a high ticket item. This is for a simple sales reason. it gets people drawn into the stand, it gets them talking to me, and whilst often they won't come away with the high ticket item, what they will do is see the other smaller, more reasonably priced items around £10 and £15 and come away with a bottle opener or a beer caddy or something similar. Don't ever underestimate the value when selling of having a high ticket item that draws people in only to divert their attention onto something smaller. Now, what I love about projects like this is that this is also just scrap wood. It's just bigger scrap wood. A couple of pallets that you can find at the side of the road will break down easily and make a mug kitchen. The process is rather simple. Pull them apart, clean them up, and make them into usable timber. From there, I like to make 2 tabletops, one for the base and one for the backboard. The process from there isn't really hard. Add 4 legs, cut 2 holes for some bowls, and you're pretty much done. The only other thing that you have to consider for an outlay on this one is some colourful utensils. Bringing a pop of colour to a project like this draws people's eye and brings them over to have a closer look. Like I say, it's great if I sell one of these at a stall, but its real reason is to be there and pull in a crowd. From there, I get to showcase my other goods. Now, it would be easy to dismiss this project and say that you need some really decent tools like a router or a circular saw, but let's be honest, you could use a jigsaw, you could use a handsaw for the straight edges, you could sand on a bit of a chamfer. All these tools do is make the process slightly easier. Now, if you would like some of these tools but you haven't got much of a budget, then look at some of the supermarkets like Lidl or Aldi. Go down those centre aisles and you can pick up some really useful tools for £20 or £30 each. You will get the investment back tenfold from these tools, and the time that it saves you having them will just mean that you can make more items to sell and be more efficient. Now, the key when using big panels or chunky legs like this is to have a dry fit. If you don't have a dry fit and you go straight for the glue up and it doesn't fit, you wouldn't believe the panic that comes across you. And as I'm getting older, and I'd like to say wiser, I like to live with as least panic and stress as I can. I learnt that one through experience. Now, the great thing about making things like mug kitchens or any of the other 5 projects is because you do them repeatedly, you become very, very quick and efficient with your time. I've got making a mug kitchen down to about 2 hours worth of work. Yes, I've got to wait in between for the glue to dry. However, if you look at selling something between £70 and £100, depending on how good you want to make it or what the price point is for your area, that's a really good return for 2 hours work and the minimal amount invested in materials. Now, one top tip for making a mug kitchen or any other item that's going to be used by a kid is make sure that everything is well secured down. Kids don't act like adults. They're not reasonable, they're not gentle, and to be honest, they're downright destructive. So make sure that you fasten it in one way or another, either with screws or like I am doing here with dowels, just anything that's going to add that extra layer of fixing to make sure that this lasts. Because the last thing you want is people returning any of your stuff, wanting their money back, or even worse, leaving you a negative review somewhere. Now, it's really important because this is for kids that we make sure we knock down all the edges. The last thing you want is injuries. And that also goes for the products used for finishing. So this mug kitchen came out great. This one itself I sold for £80. Now, don't get me wrong, that is more towards the top end in my area, But the great thing with something like a mug kitchen is you can make it as stylish or as rustic as you like, and then just vary your price accordingly. I make different variations of this, from using old deck boards like I have done in the other project with the wine cooler, to using pallet wood like this one and going with colourful stains and really trying to enhance that finish. There's some basic tips to help you make these mug kitchens better. I buy these plastic utensils off of Amazon. They're really bright, draw people's eye in, and again, only cost a couple of pounds, and you'll be amazed at how different your sales can be by including things like utensils for a couple of pounds, and especially if you source your materials for free or next to nothing, it's a small price to pay to make a 60, 70 or maybe even £80 sale that's going to keep some money coming in for your workshop, so you can buy tools, materials or whatever you like to enhance your craft as you're going forwards. This is a stove cover, or for those of us in the UK it's a worktop cover. This sits neatly above your cooker or your hob top, and it allows you, particularly in a small kitchen, to have that little bit more bench space when you're not cooking. So step one is quite simply take your chosen wood, in this case pallet wood, cut it into thin strips and then glue it all back together as one solid piece. Once you're out of clamps, it's onto some sanding. Now if you've managed to keep this flat, it shouldn't be too onerous. However, if not, go with a really low grit and work your way up higher each time. If you've got one, I like to glue things up into small batches first and then run them through the planer. This wood muncher was one of the first investments I made into this workshop, and if you're in a position to do so, I would highly recommend it, as this saves you plenty of time planing stuff down and keeping it smooth. Once you're happy with the state of your slab, you need to go on and make some sides and a back. I've used the same process with pallet wood for this as I have for the slab. I measured these out, taking a referential measurement, double checking that everything fits as I liked it before coming back and attaching it on with glues, clamps and some small screws coming in from the rear. I always come back with a final hand sanding. I also like the fact that I can just knock down those edges without going over the top like you can with an orbital sander. The choice of finish is down to yourself, but I went with a light oak. I love projects like these because the outlay is so minimal. I managed to sell 10 of these in my area at 25 each. I'm quite happy with the £250 I've got back to reinvest into the workshop. So like most projects that I sell, I keep my cost down by using the materials that I've got available. Here I've managed to find a bit of leftover 18mm ply. This will do great for a project like this. So nothing's glued together yet. I've just got my set square holding a few bits together, making sure that the back's square to 90. And then for the phone to hold on to, just want this little piece in here. But then I've got this right unsightly gap there. So after a bit of messing about, I decided that the best angle, quite simply just 245 bevels on it. that way it sticks nice and flush there, without me having to do too much maths. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I just want to build a little drawer on here. Well, it can sit on top, and a little drawer with a bit of space for some odds and sods, some bits and bats, all that you might need just hanging around. So I'm going to offer this up, make some markings, back onto the mitre saw, and I'll get them cut down to size. So as a rough design, it's sort of coming together now. One's going to sit there, one little keys on top of there, and a little drawer there. Well, after a boatload of sanding, it looks like we're finally getting there. Don't really want to sand it too much, but it were all a bit scuffed and all a bit dirty, so just took it down gently, down to 150 grit. What I will say is it's amazing how much dust just a bit of light sanding makes. And after a loose fit, it's time to move on to gluing. Now I bought these corner clamps as a Christmas gift one year. Don't buy them. More hassle than they're worth. Just get some normal clamps and make some right angled jigs. Or you can buy them. Time to move on to the little drawer now, and I've got some 3mm ply that I've cut into a base, 2 sides, and I'll sort a piece of the plywood out for the front drawer. Now I like to round over all the edges. There's nothing worse than getting a negative review because somebody's caught themselves more than once on a sharp edge. And after painting, it's time to just do a little bit of branding. You'll be amazed at how much difference a small piece of detail makes to how people view a product. These quite simply are stencils I bought offline, and you can order them in any shape or size, or even have custom ones made for your own designs. Touch of polyurethane just to stop any marks getting put on this if people are going to slam some keys down onto it, and we're into the beauty shots. Another project done that I think's come out quite well. So coming in at around £20 for each one of these, it's nice easy money out of scrap material. Every time you make something, reinvest it back into your workshop. If you're really savvy and you've got the market for it, you can personalise these and charge that little bit more, which also means that you're bringing more revenue into your workshop. But what I want you to see here is the value of shopping around. I'm going to show you the size of this timber the best I can. I'm 6 foot and this thing's taller than I am. There's a good argument that it's thicker than I am as well, but we'll leave that for you guys to decide and let me know in the comments. The reason I'm putting this one in there is because it's amazing what you can find if you keep your eyes and ears open to the deals that are around you. I replied to an advert on Facebook Marketplace where a joinery shop was closing down. I managed to get this board for £10, which is an absolute steal. Not only that, I got another 5 more as well. What this allows is, one, good value for hardwood, But secondly, it means that when you're making a chopping board or charcuterie board, you can use different species of wood, which will enhance the level of the board that you're producing. Better board, more money. The maths is quite simple. So once we've brought this board down into something more manageable, it's time to get it through the wood muncher. For this, I've made a homemade jig. This allows it to keep level all the way through. Now, there is one thing that I really do like about projects like this, and I'll let you into a secret. It lets you get down into places like this. Places that are full of scraps that you've hidden. I've got these things hidden all over the place, and on this occasion I've got some lovely birch scraps that are going to add some detail to this board. The more you can use up from leftovers and scraps, the more money you're going to make on the items that you're selling. Right, that's the planing all done. The sun's finally out, so it's onto the driveway to chop this piece down a bit. I'm going to cut it to the thickness of my birch scraps, as they're about the right size for a chopping board. So this is what I'm left with, 6 really nice thick strips, plenty of width on it. What I think I'm going to do though, I'm going to put these 3 together, take these 3 over here, I'll birch scraps in, and I think I'll have this one as a bit of a charcuterie board, and this one as a traditional chopping board. Now another reason that I like this build is because of the tools that I'm using. This bandsaw came from a supermarket, it was about £80. This jigsaw came from a different supermarket, it was £10, albeit that was about 10 years ago and it is one of the first tools that I had. But the reason why I mention this is to show you that you don't have to have a workshop full of Fez tool and Makita and DeWalt, like that drill, to make all these sort of projects. Basic tools can do the job for you. Also, if you buy enough tools while doing the food shop, your wife stops sending you. That means more time in the workshop. Now in the end, I wanted this board slightly wider, so I found yet another offcut. This time it's walnut, and this has really made this a tri-coloured board effect, and I think it's fantastic. And with a quick polish up, and before you know it, got 2 boards. Nice chopping board and a nice charcuterie board. Now I was absolutely gutted when this chopping board sold because I loved it so much with that walnut strip on the end. However, I soon got over it because I got £40 for it. You can't complain getting money back like that. The charcuterie board sold for £20. So from some scraps and a £10 lump of wood, I managed to turn £60 and plenty more left over for other projects. This again is what I call an all-profit product. That's because it's scraps. Quite simply, raid your scraps bins, get a couple of different species, and away you go. These things are great when you can personalise them. It's an easy one to overlook by thinking, as woodworkers, we can all make a mallet. You'll be amazed at how many people will get one engraved with Dad's 50th, Granddad's workshop, that type of thing, where somebody likes to go out and have a garage workshop just like you and me, but they're not particularly woodworkers. These are great gifts and easy money. You can find loads of designs and measurements online for these, but if you've already got one, why not just take some referential markings? Now that we've got all the pieces that we want, it's quite simple. I'm going to glue them together, the contrasting one in the middle. Now, you may not have a lathe of your own. This one here cost me £60 on Facebook Marketplace, and it's really helped me expand my small business. But if you've not got one, so next time you're at your hardwood shop or a turning supplier, they will have these dowels already stocked, already cut, and you can pick them up for just a couple of pounds each. We have a couple of mallet heads drying, and we have 2 handles made and ready to go, all with finger holes. Now that I've got my blocks out at clamps, I'm going to look at cutting them down and shaping them. I'm going to go with a table saw because I've got a blade on it that's got more teeth, gives a finer cut than my mitre saw. That's a little bit of a butcher, is that thing. I'm going to use my mitre gauge and a clamp just to hold it because it's a little bit small, and fire it through to about a 7 or 8 degree angle. After a couple of goes through the table saw, I'm left with 2 heads, one that's slightly more refined with some angles and another one squarer, a bit more bulky, but I like them both in their own ways. Now certainly for this bigger one, we're going to have to look at doing something a little bit more fancy just to take your eye off how big and square it is. Time for a quick sand now. We've got some 120 and a little bit of light filling to do. Attaching the mallet head to the handle should be quite easy in theory. I'm just insetting a hole, a small one in the middle for a big dowel, and then clamping them together. So I think these two came out absolutely fantastic, and I've kept these two as a demonstration so I can show other people my work. Selling these for around £15 to £20 each, it's a great use of scraps, and again it adds up to that running total of what you've got to spend on upgrades or maybe other woods or anything that you want for your workshop. Now don't get me wrong, this board's wonkier than a wonky thing from Wonksville. But that's the great thing about buying timber seconds. For the projects that I'm going to show you, this is ideal because with a small amount of milling, you can turn a board that costs £10 into hundreds and hundreds of pounds if you wish. So let's start by chopping this down. First of all, we need to know what our dimensions are. Once we've got that, we can take this to just a little bit oversized over on the chop saw. Once we're happy with the cut, and certainly when all the smoke's dispersed, we need to put this through the thicknesser. But when you're dealing with a short piece of board that's got a really big wonk, sometimes what you need to do is just build a sled. That's a posh way of saying I'm going to glue it to another board. And once we've got one smooth edge on top, we flip the board over, taking stock of just how rough the other side actually was, and we go again, putting it back through the thicknesser until we've got 2 parallel sides. And this is what amazes me with a planer. In less than 10 minutes, I've taken this horrible, wonky board and turned it into some beautiful looking timber ready for the project. Now what makes me laugh is this entire piece cost me £10. I source all my hardwoods from a local furniture store that just sells me offcuts for next to nothing. It's their trash, but for me, it's absolute treasure because if I went to the big box store, this alone is 25 quid. But I got all this for £10 and about 20 minutes clean-up work. So once I've stopped cooing over getting a good deal down at my local wood store again, it's time to get on with setting up the table saw and ripping this piece into four 15mm wide strips. 15mm is going to be the exact number that I want for the simple reason is I need to put a bit of a rebate in this for something to sit within the box I'm going to make. Now this is the only time I'll ever tell you to take your blade guard off, when you're not making a completely through cut. I need to drop this blade down so I can pass the wood over the top of the blade without the cut coming all the way through. This is a well established technique, and what this gives you is a nice little groove that you can house something in, which is one of the steps coming up in the very near future. Now the exact depth of this cut doesn't matter because we can change one of the upcoming cuts to make sure that we've got our piece exactly at the size that we want for the part that's going to sit in it. What is important here though is consistency, and this is where the fence comes in. All these cuts have to line up so when you make a box out of these, everything sits in line, and the part that we're going to make shortly is going to sit and be seated really nice. Quite simply, we're going to push each of these four pieces through the blade before stopping and checking that we've got a nice tight snug fit. If we need a little bit more room, you move your fence over and repeat until you are happy with the fit that you've got. So once we've cut all four pieces and we're happy with the fit that we've achieved, we're going to move on to the next part, which is to cut a name into this piece of acrylic. Now for this, I'm going to use the Omtech Polar Laser, and I'll tell you why I picked this machine. Everything I'm going to do to this acrylic, you can do in another way, but the Omtech Polar Laser brings a level of precision and speed that I can't replicate as a human. Now I absolutely love how easy this Omtech laser is to use. Simply turn it on, plug it into your computer, press go, and the files ping themselves straight over and the cutting begins. Even a computer newbie like me can make this piece of kit work. It's absolutely a game changer if you've got a small workshop or hobby business. And because I'm so made up with the quality of this machine, I'm going to leave some details down below in the pinned comment and in the description about how you can get one. It is an affiliate link, but it costs you no extra if you go on to buy. So with all our parts cut out now, it's time to start the assembly process. And as always, we're going to use a smidgen of glue and every clamp I own. Why does that always seem to happen? But as I'm putting this together, I have a question for you. Do you know what I'm making yet? Have you figured it out? Are you surprised that something so simple sells for as much as £75? Let me know in the comments below. So once I've finished messing about putting way too many clamps on this thing, it's time to do a little bit of cleanup once that's all dried. A light little bit of sanding just to smarten up these edges because my miters weren't that bob on, but good enough to sell. After that, it's time to set up the router table because I need to make a rebate in the back because I'm going to put some mirror in the back to help with the light on this situation. Hopefully by now you can see how this thing's coming together. And once I've cleaned up the router marks with a little bit of hand sand, and it's time to put a little groove in the bottom of this thing because I'm going to kick this lighting up to the next level. Now I love these little LED string lights. Fits on a USB plug, simple on and off switch. Bob's your uncle, can't go wrong. Nice and simple, easy way to elevate your project. Now I love adding unusual materials to my build, and these acrylic mirrors are just that. I picked these up from a craft store seconds place, less than £1 each. Excellent for projects such as this one. And once everything is glued into place, it's time to just wipe on a little bit of finish. Nothing fancy here, just some simple wipe on poly. And now it's time for the big reveal. But did you guess right? What did you think it was? Because the actual answer is a light box with a name on. I've made this for a child further down the road. Now, I'll be honest, I said at the beginning that I found this for £75 on Etsy. I'll be honest with you, I don't have the guts to charge £75 for something that's cost me about £3 to £4 in material. I sold this for £30 in my area, and since providing that one to the family down the road, I've had another 4 orders. Simple products like this that cost a few pounds can turn you a nice little profit in your area. Now, if you wanted, you could sell these wherever you wanted. You could set up a proper Etsy store and go that way, or quite simply Facebook Marketplace and advertise them on your local village or town groups. It's nice and easy. But let me know, what do you think of this project? Is this something that you could make? And what do you think you'd be able to sell it for in your area? So that just leaves me to say thank you to OnTech. If you want some more information about this laser, I'll leave some details in the description and the pinned comment. Failing that, thank you very much for watching. I'm Ross, this is Fat Hog Woodworking, and I hope I've done enough to see you on the next one.